The sky above Zeta Orionis Academy shimmered with the cold light of twin moons, casting long, silver shadows over the red-crusted training fields. Drill horns echoed across the barracks as cadets, scales, fur, chitin, or skin, formed ranks in perfect synchronization. All except the humans, who stood a half-step apart, just enough to irritate the Zalithian instructors. Eli Dorn adjusted his collar and grinned sideways at Mira Halden. "They hate us. You know that, right?" Mira didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the distant observation tower, where command officers watched like vultures. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were calculating. Watching. Always. "Come on," Halden. Eli nudged. "Just once. Smile like you're not planning someone's funeral." "Too many moving parts for funerals," she said flatly. He laughed, brushing a streak of red dust off his uniform. "You always say things like that and never explain. It's creepy. I admire that." "Then you're not listening close enough." The call to disperse came, and cadets peeled off toward their assigned quarters. Mira lingered a moment before turning away, as if calculating how long it would take for the tower's occupants to blink first. They didn't. Later, in the mess hall, Eli held court as usual, a mix of bravado and reckless charm that somehow cut through species lines. He was retelling the time he hacked into a Zalithian wargame simulation and made every enemy mech wear a pink tutu. Mira sat across from him, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like she was memorizing every vent and exit. "You're not laughing," he said between bites of something allegedly protein-based. "You're getting sloppy," she replied. "Flattered you notice. 3 of the instructors haven't blinked since you walked in. You're being watched. More than usual." He sobered slightly.
"Yeah.
I've been poking around places they don't want poked." She stared at him. "Are you trying to die here?" "Not trying," he said. "Just can't stand the stink of secrets. Especially when they smell like betrayal." The next day, the academy's tone shifted. Eli was pulled from morning drills. No reason. No return. Mira found his bunk stripped bare. No messages. No warnings. Just a faint copper scent clinging to his mattress. Not blood. Not yet. But something close. By midday, a summons. Cadets assembled in the central tribunal courtyard. High above, a tiered balcony loomed, the trial platform, rarely used. Never for cadets. Then he was led out. Eli Dorn. Wrists bound, lips split, eyes steady. His uniform had been torn, not by wear, but by deliberate hands. They shoved him to his knees beneath the harsh glare of the twin suns. A Zalithian officer, Commander Vrax, spoke from the balcony. His voice boomed through translators, layered with condescension and hollow formality. "Cadet Dorn stands accused of espionage, treason, and the infiltration of classified military infrastructure. Evidence has been reviewed. Verdict: guilty. No defense. No trial. Just proclamation." Mira stood motionless in the crowd. Not blinking. Not breathing. Punishment. Summary execution, per Article 9 of the Unified Academy Code. Eli raised his head. Eyes scanned until they found her. He smiled. Then the bolt hit him, bright violet plasma exploding through his chest, hurling his body backward like a rag doll tossed by the universe. Mira didn't scream. She didn't move. 23 seconds passed. The tribunal officers turned away. At second 4, Mira stepped forward. At second 8, the guards moved to block her. At second 11, 2 thuds echoed. Organic, final. At second 17, the balcony cracked. At second 23, she emerged from the shadows of the corridor behind the tribunal's grandstand. Her face unreadable. Her body splattered. Her uniform, blood-soaked, too much for one man. And in her hand, something clenched, the shattered remains of a command insignia. She stepped past the stunned crowd of cadets, through the falling silence like it was nothing but air. No one stopped her. No one dared. As she passed Eli's body, she knelt, gently closed his eyes, then stood and walked away. The blood didn't seem to bother her, and not one person asked her to explain. The sound of Myra's footsteps echoed through the corridor like the ticking of a war clock, each one measured, each one deliberate. Blood dripped from her fingers, not shaken off, not wiped away, just left to mark her path. Somewhere behind her, alarms were beginning to shriek. Somewhere ahead, the walls knew what was coming and trembled in silence. She wasn't thinking. Not the way normal cadets thought. Her mind had folded inward, locked on a frequency deeper than rage. It was protocol now, buried beneath bone and instinct, one she had never wanted to use. 9 steps into the tribunal chamber, the first guard moved. He was fast, Zalithian-trained, augmented. But Mira was already gone from his line of sight, sliding beneath his reach, planting her heel in his throat hard enough to shatter bone and crush breath. He crumpled without sound. The second guard fired. The bolt scorched air where she'd been a moment before. She caught his weapon arm mid-swing, snapped it backward at the elbow, then drove the sidearm into his own thorax. The weapon discharged once. Brief. Efficient. A third, smaller figure, a Nyariade, reached for the calm. Myra's hand landed on her shoulder like gravity incarnate. No words were spoken. She didn't need to kill her. She just looked, and the aide sat back down, shaking. By the time she reached the tribunal platform, the council had already begun scrambling. One tried to escape through a security door. It hissed open, then jammed half-closed with the body of another official Mira had thrown through it. Commander Vrax stood his ground. Not out of courage, but arrogance. He leveled a plasma baton and sneered. "You think this will change anything, human?" "No," Mira said. Then she lunged. She didn't fight the way most soldiers did. There was no waste. No flourish. Only consequence. Vrax got one strike in. It glanced her ribs, seared cloth and skin, but then her hand closed around his throat and pushed him into the railing with a sound like splintering metal. He gargled something, tried to activate his badge. She crushed it in his palm. She leaned close, her voice a whisper meant only for him. "You didn't kill him because he broke a rule. You killed him to send a message." Her fingers dug deeper. "So let me send mine." The tribunal balcony cracked. It would hold, barely, but the symbolic weight was already rupturing the illusion of authority. Beneath them, cadets had scattered. The courtyard had turned from a training ground into a crater of silence. As the final council member slumped against the floor with a faint whimper, Mira turned back toward the chamber's center. Her breath was steady, though her side burned. She'd felt pain before. This was nothing new. Her mind flicked back to the final night she and Eli had talked, not as cadets, but as people. He had sat on the edge of his bunk, legs swinging, tracing old scars on his arms from training sessions gone sideways. "You ever wonder if they're just waiting for one of us to snap?" he'd asked. "No," she'd said. "Why not?" "Because they already decided we're dangerous. They're just waiting for the excuse." He had smiled, soft and tired. "Promise me something?" She didn't answer. "If they come for me, if I don't walk out of that tribunal, you make sure they regret breathing." Mira hadn't nodded. She didn't have to. Eli had understood her silences better than anyone. Understood what kind of promise she never spoke aloud. Back in the tribunal, the last of the bodies cooled on the marble floor. Mira looked down at her own hands, slick with blood and carbon soot. She knew what this meant. There would be no walking away. No disciplinary hearing. No exile. She had made herself into a message. Footsteps approached, not panicked but hesitant. A few alien cadets, wide-eyed, trembling, weapons drawn but not aimed. One of them, a young Marin male with iridescent skin, looked at her like she was a myth made flesh. "You're going to start a war," he whispered. She met his gaze. Her voice was cold, brittle steel. "No. They already started it. I'm just letting everyone see what it looks like when we answer." He lowered his weapon. She stepped past him and out into the daylight. The courtyard was stained, the shadows long. Overhead, the surveillance drones blinked red. The footage had been captured, archived, transmitted. Earth would know. The galaxy would know. And soon, they would all have to decide what mattered more: the fear of humanity's potential, or the cost of provoking it. Mira stood still for a moment, wind lifting her torn sleeves, eyes fixed on the sky. Then slowly she began to walk. They kept her in a containment cell beneath the Academy's ruins, 10 meters underground, 6 layers of shielding, and silence, so complete it pressed against the eardrums like weight. Mira didn't move. She sat cross-legged on the cold floor, hands resting on her knees, eyes closed. Not asleep. Never asleep. Just waiting. On the second day, they sent in a psychologist from the Galactic Council. He spoke 12 languages. Tried 4 of them. Mira didn't answer. He left sweating. On the third day, the Council sent footage to Earth. Unedited. Tribunal massacre, Eli's execution, Myra's 23-second response. It was a desperate move, a plea for humanity to contain its own. Earth responded 3 hours later. A single transmission. You killed one. She warned you. We'll take her back now. No threats. No demands. Just certainty, like gravity. Like judgment. But the Council didn't release her. On the 4th day, the first human ship arrived, a dropship with no insignia, its outer hull scorched from interstellar sprinting. From it emerged 3 figures, 2 handlers, and a woman in an Earth uniform so black it seemed to absorb light. She entered the cell, without guards, without weapons. Mira opened her eyes for the first time in days. The woman nodded. Mira Halden. Call sign. Nemesis protocol, dormant. Reactivated without approval. Mira didn't blink. You violated unified military protocol, engaged in multiple unregulated kill zones, and destabilized a planetary institution. Still nothing. The woman's expression didn't change. And Earth thanks you. Myra's eyes narrowed. Barely. The woman stepped closer, voice softening. They forgot rule number 1. We told them, don't push the humans too far. We meant it. A pause. The silence between 2 weapons. What happens now? Mira asked. You come home, the woman said. Or you stay. Entirely your choice. Mira looked past her, at the mirrored glass where alien observers watched, probably thinking she'd scream or cry or rage. She stood instead. I buried him with my hands. I shouldn't have had to. You won't again, the woman replied. They walked out together. When the doors opened and the alien guards flinched, Mira didn't even look at them. Her silence was more effective than any blade. By the time they reached the dropship, news had already spread. Not just of her release, but of what she'd become. The footage had gone viral across sectors. Every frame analyzed. Every death. Every step. Alien militaries dissected her movements, with terror disguised as curiosity. She had killed 10 tribunal officers, for guards, and left 3 others mentally broken, all in under 23 seconds. No official war had been declared. But no one trusted silence from Earth anymore. Inside the ship, Mira stood in the med bay, shirt lifted slightly as a technician scanned the plasma burn along her ribs. She barely felt it. Pain was just data, and hers had already been overwritten. You want sedation? He asked. She shook her head. A few minutes later, she sat alone in the observation chamber. On the wall was Eli's name, etched by someone. Maybe the pilot. Maybe someone who knew. It was a simple thing. Just his name and the words. He stood up when they expected him to kneel. Mira reached forward and traced the letters. She remembered the night before he died, the weight of his voice when he asked her to burn it all down if they took him. She had. But something deeper still burned. Back on the surface, the Academy was being dismantled. Human cadets were pulled from the program. Earth wasn't negotiating. It was exiting. Quietly. Permanently. And the void left behind was being filled with fear. Myra's silence had said more than any speech. As the dropship prepared for launch, she stood one last time at the rear hatch. The Academy was just a blot of smoke on the horizon. But the memory of Eli's smile and the way his body jerked when the plasma hit him never left her. She whispered one thing into the wind. A promise, maybe. Or a warning. Then the hatch closed. Far across the stars, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The term human deterrence was coined. New protocols were drafted. Entire treaties rewritten. But one phrase, found scrawled in the private notes of a Zalithian general, became legend. Do not provoke the humans, especially the quiet ones. And across Earth's Deep Ops Command, Mira Halden's file was marked classified. She was no longer a cadet. She was the consequence.